Good morning, Bravo bosses, and welcome to I Take Bravo Very Seriously with me, your host, Dana. I'm happy to be here again this week. I know I just pumped out an episode on Monday, but as I told you guys, I would probably be pumping out some more episodes this week and going forward. You know why? Because I am unemployed. And so I really have nothing else to do, so I figured why not share some more content with you guys. And then the Lord above, and by that I mean Daddy Alex Baskin, the executive producer of Vanderpump Rules, The Valley, and Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, dropped an episode of his podcast, Bravo's Hot Mic with Brittany Cartwright. And it was honestly pretty juicy, and there was quite a bit of The Valley season 2 tea. So I thought, you know what? Let's get into it. What's so funny about this Bravo's Hot Mic podcast is that it started last year and it was a paid podcast, meaning you had to pay to listen to it. And just today, I noticed that there was like a 10-minute clip of Brittany Cartwright on his podcast, on the Bravo Hot Mic podcast on YouTube. So I was like, oh, amazing. This is great. And everybody was pulling clips from it and posting them online. But then today, I just realized that the entire episode is free. And it's like a 53-minute episode. So I was like, oh, this is great. So from what I understand, going forward, the Bravo Hot Mic podcast will be free. And obviously, because Alex Baskin has access to the best guests, it's a pretty good podcast. So I figured, yeah, let's just recap that because Brittany gave us quite a bit. So I'm excited to get into it. I hope you are as well. So here's what we got from Brittany Cartwright. She said that her and Jax were actually arguing before filming, like the Valley in general, because Alex Baskin was asking her if being on TV again and being on the show is what really led to their relationship breaking down. And she said it didn't help, right? There's definitely pressures that come with being on TV, but she did specify that they were arguing before they ever started filming season 1. She said that Jax really cares about what they look like on the outside. And at first I thought she meant physically, but she meant how their relationship appears, right? So he wants their relationship to look perfect and pretty on the outside, which is so funny because that's something he totally always judged Sheena for. But yeah, apparently that's something that he wanted. But on TV, you can't really do that. And because in real life, he never really allowed her to vent to her friends about their relationship, that sort of changed because when they were on TV, they had to vent about the relationship. She had to talk to Janet. She had to talk to Kristen. And because of that, it led to them fighting even more because he was worried about what she was saying to other people. And so that was quite of an issue. So she also mentioned that when they were separated, she actually lived in 4 different rental houses in 7 months. She said that Jax wouldn't move out because he said, "This is my house," which is just so funny. I'm like literally watching Vanderpump Rules from the beginning right now, and I'm back watching those episodes where he cheated on her and he wouldn't get out of the apartment. And Sandoval's like, dude, get out of the apartment. Like, how dare you? And like, now all these men just won't leave the house. And it is so annoying, right? Like, he's the one who wouldn't change. He was the one treating her badly. And yes, it was her decision to separate, but it's really not cool. So she said that really her breaking point was that they were fighting so bad and it was so toxic in their house. And she didn't want that for Cruz. So she didn't want to have an environment where both parents are going at it and Cruz is there and he's witnessing his parents fighting with each other. She felt like this was really too toxic for him. And when it came to that point, that's when she felt like she had to move out. She said that she actually moved out a couple of times for the weekend, previously before they were separated, when they had gotten in bad fights, and then she would move back in. I am surprised to hear that. That's not something that we sort of knew about, but it makes sense, right? Because it does take people a long time to get to that point of making the decision to separate. She said that her friends were supportive, which obviously makes sense. I can't imagine any of her friends saying this is a healthy situation, don't leave him. I can very much imagine people like Janet, people like Kristen telling her that if she needed to leave, that this is something she had to do. And then she said that. She said that she had to protect her mental health, right? And there's definitely something to be said for certain people in certain situations bringing out the worst in you. And if she felt like she needed to separate herself from him so that she could breathe and so that she could properly take care of herself and properly take care of her son, that makes complete sense. She said that the more that she had to talk about her relationship on TV, it actually held her accountable to do something about it. And Alex Baskin asked her what she really meant by that. And she's like, well, like people would send her pics of him when he was like going out and doing things like when they were separated. But, you know, when she would have to talk on TV and say things to people like he's doing this, and she'd be getting pictures of him doing bad things, she would look stupid to go back to him. So, or that's how she felt about it. So she felt like if everyone's aware of her doing these things and it's out there on TV, then if she doesn't do something about it, she knows she's going to get it from the public. So it made her feel accountable to the public, I guess. She said that the entire separation was actually very up and down. And that is something I feel like we saw because we saw them on their podcast sometimes being flirty, and then we saw them sometimes fighting and not being able to even do it together. So, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. She said sometimes they were actually close to getting back together, and sometimes they didn't talk for weeks. And there was this podcast that they did. It was around the time of his birthday because he kept talking about them having sex for his birthday. So let's say his birthday's like July. It's either the 7th or the 11th. So it was around that time, maybe a week or two before. And that was the episode that people were like, are they going to get back together? Because they were hardcore flirting. He was like, am I going to have some sex for my birthday? And then they never did an episode together again. So I bet it was around that time that she's talking about where they were actually close to getting back together. And then shortly after that, they didn't talk for weeks. That's what I would bet. Um, she thought that the separation would actually prompt him to do the small things that she wanted, and it didn't. And she clarified again what those small things are, just to be nice to her and to treat her well and to appreciate her and to compliment her. And it didn't do those things. It actually led to him going out more and drinking and partying and not changing. And she said that they had a horrible blow up 2 days before they started filming for season two. And that's when things spiraled out of control. But actually, a week before that, they were talking about her moving back in. So, yeah, that all makes sense. Exactly what I said with the timing wise, because that's around the time that they started filming. So, that makes complete sense. She said that his blowups got worse during their separation, and she had to deal with that for years. She said, like, these blowups were happening for years and years and years, and she would just excuse it. And another thing that he would often do is pretend that it never happened. So then she would pretend that it never happened, and she just sort of got into this cycle with him. She reminded us that they've been together since 2015, so that's 9 years, which is crazy. She said that a lot of people thought she was crazy for marrying him, but she was so in love with him. I mean, that's something we saw on the show, right? Like, we saw her being treated so badly by him for so many years, but we saw her never give up her faith or her hope and that love for him. And eventually we just had to say, okay, Britt, go with God, do you, right? Because at the end of the day, everyone's going to make their own decisions, but the public or your friends or whatever can only do so much. If you're in love with someone, you're in love with someone. And, she sort of had to let this go through for herself to make these decisions for herself. She said that Jax has never had consequences for his actions, which is true, because she said that he never thought she would actually leave. So she didn't make this decision lightly, and that she's mad that Jack signed a lease behind her back to move in with Schwartz, or sorry, not move in with Schwartz, to move in next to Schwartz. So she's annoyed that it's next to Schwartz, but she didn't really specify why. But she's annoyed about this lease because apparently he didn't say anything to her about it. She had actually paid upfront for a rental until October 31st, which he's fully aware of. So she was still paying for and taking care of two households while, like, he could have moved out, but no. So she was the one who ended up having to have all the consequences of moving four times, and he didn't really have to do anything. So that was really annoying for her. She said that Jax didn't want to miss out on living next to Tom when they actually have a house that's being paid for. So again, she's saying that, like, he just makes decisions without her in mind and without Cruz in mind. But she said something interesting about Schwartz. She said that Schwartz is worried that he's going to get wrapped into another Scandival situation, but with Jax. So he actually doesn't want to live next to Jax because of this. And I don't really know what he means by that, but that would be pretty interesting. Brittany said that she was accused of not taking sides and being friends with everyone in season two of The Valley. She said that Janet and Kristen are both her friends, but they don't like each other, which I guess gives us some insight because obviously we knew that going into season two they weren't friends, but we don't really know what happened during season two. So for Brittany to say that Janet and Kristen are both her friends but don't like each other, she said that in like a current day sort of way, then maybe the entirety of season two continued on that way between Janet and Kristen. So that's something. We did hear this last week, but we got a little bit more that the partners of Jax's Studio City want Brittany to take over another bar, which is also right next to Rocco's, which is like where Jax's is. But here's something. So Jax told her that he wanted everyone to know that he's a part of it, but he actually isn't. He just can't stand like not being a part of something or not getting credit something, but apparently he has no credit for it because she did so much for Jax's. The partners really wanted to work for her and with her. So there's this other interesting little tidbit that she gave us. She said that there's like this boys group chat, which makes sense. Like I'm sure all the men have a group chat, but apparently it started from Tom and Katie's wedding because it was like all the groomsmen. And basically they've been like adding to it over time. So there's 25 guys in this group chat. And basically, people found out things from the chat, and Jax is mad because he wants to know who the mole is, and certain things from the chat were like being released. But Brittany said that like she had access to the chat. I'm sure a lot of the other girlfriends and wives has access to the chat. So I think a lot of what happens this season has to do with this men's group chat and things that came out of it. And what's funny is, correct me if I'm wrong, but I bet you $1 million that this is the group chat that led to Jax not going to Beau and Stassi's wedding because there was a group chat with the guys that Jax was writing in during that time before the wedding. So before the wedding, Jax and Brittany were telling Stassi and Beau, "Yeah, we're coming to the wedding, no problem. We're coming to Italy." But in this group chat that that Jax had with the guys, he was saying, "We can't afford this. We don't want to go to Italy for this wedding. This is bullshit." I bet you $1 million this is the group chat. And yeah, Jax just wants to know the mole. So yeah, this will come up in the group. She confirmed that Jax has a burner account, like an Instagram account, but so does everybody, so that's not so much tea. She said that he still calls the Valley his show, even though he was in a mental health facility for 30 days, which is like, ooh, that almost reminds me of like, thanks for the boob job, asshole. In terms of dating, she's not dating anyone right now, but she is like interested in dating, but more so for having fun, not for a serious relationship. In terms of things that she felt were surprising this season on the Valley, it was that Luke and Kristen got engaged. She said she didn't know about it, so it was very surprising for her. And she said that something that she also found surprising on the Valley season 2 was just that she decided to file for divorce. She wasn't sure if she was going to do it, so even that for her was a surprise. She said that Jax came out of the mental health facility the same way he went in. She said that he was still rage texting her while he was in there, and that was basically what made the decision for her. She said that this guy was like in there for 30 days and having therapy for 7 hours a day, yet still is doing the same behavior, still rage texting her, still getting mad at her, and still not treating her right. So she felt like, okay, clearly a facility isn't going to change him, then nothing will, and we can't be together. She said they didn't have a no dating in the friend group policy because she didn't think they would need one, and they weren't planning on going after each other's friends. But the agreement that they had was that they don't have anyone's partners around crews, and she didn't want anybody in their home because that's their shared home. It's where their son lives part of the time. It's where her things are, her photos are. That's their home. And I do recall over the summer when they were separated hearing things in the DMs. There were so many content creators who were receiving DMs from random chicks who were allegedly with Jax saying things like, "Oh, we were all up in the house. Brittany showed up. She was upset." There was all these text messages that were showing up like on TikTok and stuff between him and girls saying things like, "I want to suck your toes," like typical Jax sort of sexual behavior. But the thing about the house, I remember hearing over the summer that at least a couple of times that there was girls that he brought back to their shared home and that Brittany had found out about it. So it's interesting that all of those rumors may actually be true, and we're actually going to get to see that play out on season 2 of The Valley. Oh, and then she confirmed that like she caught both times. So there was at least 2 times that he had girls in the house, and she actually caught him both times. Brittany said that she's now single for the first time in LA and that she's actually never lived in LA without Jax, which is interesting and true if you think about it. Like, she and Jax met in Vegas, and then a few months later, she moved to LA to be with him. And, the rest is still unwritten for Brittany. With regards to Julian, so this is the guy that she was rumored to have hooked up with that was a friend of Jax's. Lala confirmed this. Lala said that she sort of brought this guy into the group. He's from Hawaii. She used to hook up with him. And then after she and Randall broke up, he sort of was sliding back in her DMs. She never slept with him again after that, but they would kiss here and there. And then he would go on like double dates with her and Jax and Brittany. And that's how he sort of became part of the group. So Brittany said that she hung out with Julian because like she knew him and she thought he was hot, and Jax never really cared about her feelings, so she didn't really think to care about his. She said that he hooked up with her friend. You'll remember Faith. She said that she's never been on a dating app. But with regards to Julian, she said that how it sort of happened was that they were flirting through the DMs one time, and she was like, "Okay, come over." So I wonder if we'll actually get to see that play out at all in the Valley. With regards to kids, she said she's open to more kids. If it happens, it happens. But she said she wouldn't do a big wedding again, and she's actually not sure if she would get legally married again, and she would get a prenup. And she said all of that just because of how difficult going through a divorce is now and how much goes into getting a divorce and how long it takes. She said that with regards to Jax, they had planned to have more kids, and she was absolutely blindsided by Jax last summer when he said that he wasn't ready and when he said all of that on TV. She said that she and Michelle are basically in the same place. So you'll remember that Michelle and Jesse Lally got separated at the end of the Valley season 1. And so she's been able to sort of lean on Michelle for that because they're going through the same thing. Brittany says that in California, divorce takes at least 6 months, but nothing has happened basically for either of them. And with Jesse and Michelle, apparently they didn't get a lawyer initially, and that held things up. And they apparently still can't agree on things. So it's really, really taking a long time. So they've bonded over this. It was interesting to hear Alex Baskin ask Brittany about her breaking points on Vanderpump Rules or The Valley, if she's ever had any. Because if you think about the rest of the cast, we've seen them storm out, we've seen them storm off the show, we've seen them rip mics off, we've seen everything, but we've never really seen it from Brittany. So she said that her only moment was like right after Jax had cheated on her, and they were sort of sitting in the house and talking about what they were going to do with their relationship, and they had had sex that day. And then the cameras come over and Jax tries to break up with her on camera. You remember in season 6, right? So she says she stormed out of the house, she took off her mic, and she jumped into an Uber. I remember that. Only Zach Wickham knew where she was. She wouldn't tell production. She was so angry. And Jax apparently kept calling her, telling her he didn't mean to break up with her, which why did he break up with her 5 minutes before then? It's just, I can't with that man. So she said that she was so embarrassed that he cheated on her and then that he tried to break up with her on TV. So that was the only time she sort of considered like maybe leaving, but production was able to get a hold of her and bring her back. But she said that season, so season 6 of Vanderpump Rules, which was probably the most contentious season, probably the best season we've ever seen. She said that the season 2 of The Valley does not even compare to season 6 of Vanderpump Rules. So I'm ready. Like, this is crazy. I mean, the fact that if we are even getting a Vanderpump Rules season 12, we know it's gonna suck. So the fact that we at least have The Valley season 2, and after everything that Brittany said, knowing how good it's gonna be. Honestly, speaking to Lori Kay at this Tom and Jax meet and greet event I went to at in Toronto on the weekend, even she said that, like, she was like, the season 2 of The Valley is going to just be off the hook. It's just gonna be crazy. So I can't wait for it. In terms of moments she regrets, she says she doesn't really have regrets because she says that everything is a learning experience, but she said that she might have yelled at people like James, calling him a dumbass motherfucker, which I think was actually also in season 6, probably in that same scene where they're having that big housewarming party and she plays the tape of Jax and Faith like talking after they're canoodling. So I do remember that. So basically, Brittany said that The Valley season 2 is crazy, but not just because of her and Jax, but also Luke and Kristen, also Zach and Janet, also Michelle and Jesse, right? There's going to be quite a bit. And we all know that there was a big cast trip in Hawaii where Luke and Kristen get engaged, but apparently there was a lot of cast blowups, and they still filmed for a week after that, so a week after Hawaii. Alex Baskin said he was hoping that things would sort of turn around and everybody would be able to come back together, and they were not able to. Things did not get better after Hawaii, apparently, or when the season ended. So I guess to be determined, but I hope that at least for season 2 of The Valley, we are going to get a reunion because this time we deserve it. So thank you guys for being here today, and I will see you soon, BBs. Thank you for listening. This show is brought to you in partnership with Hurrdat Media. If you want to listen to this show or any other episode, you can do that on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeart, or wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to Hurrdat Media's YouTube channel to watch my full-length video podcast episodes. You can follow me on Instagram at I Take Bravo Very Seriously and at The Bravo Investigator. You can follow me on TikTok at The Bravo Investigator. Head to buymeacoffee.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously to buy me a coffee. Join the Patreon at patreon.com/I Take Bravo Very Seriously for 4 extra mini episodes a month, early episodes, ad-free, Q&A, and exclusive access to bonus content. If you enjoyed the show, please leave me a 5-star review. Love you, BBs. See you next time.
A Hurrdat Media Production.